Well, hello and welcome everyone to Homecoming Connect. This is the first ever student and alumni networking event during Homecoming weekend, and we're so happy to have you all here, even in a virtual format. My name is Alex Rodriguez. I'm from the class of 2019, and I'm a current staff member at Next Generation Philanthropy at University Development and Alumni Relations. I'm the main organizer for Homecoming Connect, and I'll be your moderator for our panel this afternoon. Before we begin, I would like to thank our co-sponsors over at the Career Center, the Haas School of Business, Browser College of Natural Resources, and Cal Athletics for their help in organizing this event and recruiting alumni to speak during this event. I would also like to thank our student group, Cal Student Philanthropy, for their work in organizing this event as well. And of course, a big thank you to the Cal alumni community for not only being here to share their advice with current students and recent alums, but also for how they help fund so many of Cal's operations through their generosity. Personally, as a recipient of scholarships when I was at Cal, I'll always be grateful to the alumni who helped make my education possible. So, before we begin, a quick refresher on the format of Homecoming Connect. From now until 5 p.m., we will be having a panel discussion with the four alums that you'll see here. I will be asking questions that we collected in advance from our Q&A form, and we will also set aside time to answer questions from the audience. If you have a question for the panelists, please ask through the Q&A function. Panelists will answer through text or will answer live later through the Q&A portion. And you can use the chat box for any other statements or to answer questions. I'll be asking the audience during the panel as well. We do ask that you keep the chat box appropriate or we will have to mute the chat. And also, please be sure to stick around for the second half of Homecoming Connect from 5 to 6 p.m. We will be running 3 simultaneous networking Zoom sessions exclusively for students and alumni. Here, you'll have the chance to interact with more featured alums and with them more directly. Haas Athletics and Rouser CNR will each be hosting a session, but they are open to all majors and all degrees. I highly recommend going. You can read more about each session in the link that we'll send in just a moment. And anyway, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our all-star panelists. You can also read the bios of our panelists at the link in the chat. So I'd like to start off with Candace Chambers, co-founder of Baybell.com and from the class of 2009. Candace Chambers is an Oakland native with a master's degree in communications, fashion design, and 10 years of experience in marketing, videography, social media, and design. After graduating from Cal, Candace began her career in television at E! News, KBCW San Francisco, and North Coast News in Humboldt County. Now, Candace is a proud mom and co-founder of Baybell.com, a fashion-forward brand with sisters Ashley and Brittany, fellow Cal Bears. Candace also works with local community organizations on issues affecting those in need, including homelessness and affordable housing. Welcome, Candace.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. I'm super proud to be a Cal alum and excited to be connecting with you all today.
Thank you, Candace. Next, I'd like to introduce Betty Starr, Vice President of Colliers International from the class of 2010. Born and raised in the Bay Area, when his family left for San Diego during his high school years, Betty Starr was determined to make his way back up a la UC Berkeley. At first, his focus was molecular cell biology at the behest of family pressures, but Starr found himself drawn to other interests. Eventually, he finished law school and decided to focus his efforts on entrepreneurial endeavors. Currently, Starr launched the NLX group at Colliers and brought over a good friend and fellow Cal alum to grow this budding venture focused on 1031 exchange and net leased investments. Welcome, Mehdi.
Thank you very much, Alex, and fellow students. Thank you for participating and having us join. Hopefully you find it fruitful. It's a real pleasure to be able to give back to the Cal community.
Thank you, Mehdi. And next, I'd like to welcome Nancy Liu, CEO of Nplug and from the class of 2012. Nancy Liu, named Forbes 30 Under 30, is CEO and co-founder of Nplug, a leading digital display software company. In college, Nancy co-founded Nanoleaf Bioscience, a venture-backed biotech company that develops polymers to eliminate refrigeration for vaccines. Passionate about community service, Nancy serves on the board of National Foster Youth Institute and After School All-Stars Los Angeles. She also serves on the board of advisors for Covington Capital, which manages $3 billion, and as a board member of CarParts.com. As a partner at X Factor Ventures, she invests in women-founded startups and as a producer of the Amazon TV series, The Bay, Nancy received an Emmy Award. Welcome, Nancy.
Hey everybody, looking forward to hearing from my fellow panelists and seeing the questions we got.
Last but not least, I'd like to welcome Ty Perez, Head of Chemical Sciences at Mechanos Incorporated and from the class of 2019. Lacking a high school diploma, Ty began community college after losing his family home to a foreclosure. 4.5 years later, Ty graduated from UC Berkeley with highest honors, earning a BS in chemical biology. In 2019, he was selected as one of 4 University Medal finalists. Initially aiming for grad school, Ty put academics on hold to explore science entrepreneurship. Today, he is a member of the founding team at Mechanos Incorporated, a nanotechnology company utilizing silicon chip technology to automate cell engineering, making cell and gene therapies more accessible. Welcome, Ty.
Hey guys, thanks so much for having me. It's a pretty big honor to be on this panel, actually.
Hi, and yeah, so welcome to all of our panelists and welcome to everyone who's joining us through Zoom today for Homecoming Connect. If you'd like to connect with the panelists after today, their contact information will be shared in a follow-up email. And again, if you have questions for our panelists, please ask through the Q&A feature. And yeah, let's begin our panel. So the theme of our panel this afternoon is reflection and resilience, keys to developing your career. Given our current state, it's more important than ever that we reflect on how to move forward in the face of adversity. We've collected questions in advance from our registrants and we'll also take more from the audience later on. So our first question is for all of our panelists. What have been the biggest challenges you faced in your career? Candace, let's start off with you.
Well, first, just let me say again how honored I am to be here, especially with all these amazing panelists. But I have to say, I graduated in 2009 during the recession. And so although it's not the same as what's going on right now with the pandemic, I can kind of relate to what it feels like to be coming out into a whole new economy and a whole new situation where you just don't know what's going to happen next. So one thing that I was able to do quickly was kind of pivot into not just what I was passionate about, but something that actually was around me. So I was able to try to find work and start to build my career in the community that I'm from, which is Oakland. And I was actually able to take my degree, which was in communications and African American studies, and be able to pivot that into not just a for-profit job, but to seeing how can I help my community right now. Because when I graduated college, like I said, it was a recession. Jobs weren't as readily available as I thought. And being a first generation college student, the expectation was, you graduate, you secure a great job and go on about your way. And that just wasn't the case for me. So I was able to take my skills, my interests, and kind of pivot into more of community-based work where I was still able to use the skills that I learned from school, but be able to kind of give back to my community in a way. So I would say the biggest struggle for me was, graduating and the kind of world was changing, but then being able to network and use my resources and be able to take my skills and to utilize them in a new way that was not planned, but in a way that actually benefited me as well because I was giving back.
Thank you for sharing, Candace. Eddie, let's hear from you.
Sure, Alex. It's a good question. And for me, the biggest challenge was overcoming, my family pressures more than anything. Being first generation and the only son, there's a sort of roadmap that I was supposed to follow. And I would say for me, it was making sure that I was honest with myself, ultimately, what I wanted in my career and my life. And so having to relay that message against the wishes of my folks in pursuing a career in business and not, as I mentioned, or as you mentioned, Alex, I started molecular cell biology. And so, transitioning from a pre-med track to eventually going to law school. And then, I failed the bar exam, was not a practicing attorney, and recognizing that my passion has always been in entrepreneurship. And at the end of the day, you have to be honest with yourself. There's, people are going to tell you to do things their way. They'll have an idea of what is right and what may be wrong. And you'll take their advice, you'll hear them out, but ultimately you're living your life. And it's very important for me to have recognized in looking back that even though it was difficult standing up to my folks and family in making the decision I made to not go to med school, to go to law school, to not be a practicing attorney, to start in commercial real estate where, you know, it's a business of relationships and I had no relationships. So I was starting from zero, was a big hill to overcome. But looking back now, 10 years, I'm happy that I've done that. And so, you know, my message is stick to your guns. If you believe in something, pursue it. It's very important.
Thank you for sharing, Mehdi. And Nancy, how about you?
All right, I can definitely relate to a lot of what Mehdi shared, especially for myself. So I started right out of college going and starting my business. In fact, I actually started my biotech company my senior year of college. And so when I went to Berkeley, I did not think I was going to be an entrepreneur. My parents immigrated here. I immigrated with them to the US. My parents worked multiple jobs. We didn't come from a background of doing business. And so when I went to Berkeley, it was actually like, oh, wow, this world of business and finance and tech was pretty new to me. And so I would say I can't really pinpoint one big challenge. I feel like starting Nanoly Bioscience and Implug as a 21-year-old right out of Berkeley, I mean, that itself was probably a pretty big challenge because here I am pitching investors. Like, I'm 21 years old, but let me tell you, I don't have a chemistry degree. I've taken one chemistry class, but you should invest in this biotech company, right? And so that was a pretty big challenge. And then certainly for Implug, it was balancing both of, you know, building these two companies at the same time. And for Implug, kind of a similar story. My co-founders and I, we were all either college dropouts or recently graduated college. So we were all between the ages of like 20 and 23 building this tech company. I, as the CEO, was in charge of fundraising. So I have no connections. I'm here in LA now. So I actually moved from the Bay Area to LA to start the business. So my challenge, I think, has been just constantly, there's always a challenge. In the first year, it's like, you're always like, are we going to go under because we don't have enough funding? How are we going to pay for the next payroll? And it's every single day, it's trying to make sure we get more investors. And with that, it was then, all right, we need to make sure our product makes money. And of course, with a tech company in the early days of software, there's always lots of bugs. And so it's, all right, this customer is an early customer and there's bugs with the software. It's an emergency, everything, it's always constantly something is happening. And so I feel like the bigger challenge is it's more for me, not a specific thing, but there's always ongoing things. And it's a mental conversation I have to have with myself every day to say, keep going. Yes, there's this obstacle and there's always going to be obstacles, especially when you're building a company, especially in the early days when you're still trying to figure out if your product is something people want or businesses want, and you're trying to assemble a team, you're trying to keep everybody motivated. And that's ongoing even today. You know, for our company, we are fortunate now, we're a profitable business. We are based in LA, but we have offices all around the world, from Brazil to Japan to Australia, and it's super fun now. But with, you know, having a global business these days, it's things like, for example, while the US business might be doing well, like our Brazil business right now is now seeing a lot of, you know, continuous shutdown. And so how do we manage that? And so every day is a challenge, but I guess it's, you take it one day at a time and you keep a positive mentality and you just focus on, here's the problem, and try to find a solution.
Thank you, Nancy, for all those examples. And yeah, I'll also hand it over to Ty now.
I think probably my biggest challenge was even just having a career in the first place. So when I began my kind of educational journey, I was totally naive to what science really was career-wise, and yet I wanted to be a scientist. And it took a lot of hubris to believe that that was actually possible. And so of course the challenge was walking into a community college completely unprepared and walking out of Berkeley's College of Chemistry and ending up with a job, no less an incredible job. So there's been a lot of ups and downs, but I think the most challenging part of that is getting used to just kind of leaping into the total unknown and, you know, being completely unprepared for amazing opportunities.
Well, thank you all of you. Thank you all of you for sharing your experiences and your backgrounds, being first gen and stuff. I really appreciate hearing all of that. Um, and yeah, so one thing I wanted to talk about is sometimes as students, we might feel as though every single choice or grade will determine our career, especially at Berkeley. But although in reality, it's not that extreme, some things that we do can help. And so I want to know, what is one thing you did as a student that helped set you up for success post-grad? And the converse, what is one thing you wish you did differently? And whoever wants to start, you can just go ahead and unmute yourselves.
I can start with that. One thing that I'll start with what I wish I'd done differently, because they're connected. So, you know, college is hard work, obviously, especially being first generation, a lot of studying, a lot of adjusting to a new environment, but it's also a lot of fun, right? You know, we all have those college memories. And so one thing that I did learn is like the person you might be partying with, the person who you may see, you know, roll out of bed and go to class might be the next, you know, investor in your startup or, you know, your next co-founder. Like you really never know. So one thing that I wish I had done more of was really just like networking and really putting myself out there a bit more because I'm from Oakland. So Berkeley was up the street, you know, so it felt like being home for me a lot. So although I did make great lifelong friends and, you know, learn more about myself in college, I do wish I had pushed myself to do that more because, you know, now the conversations I have with fellow alumni are completely different than what they were when we were talking about which bar we may go to. Now we're talking about like how to take our businesses to the next level. You know, they're connecting me with contacts and vice versa. So I would just really encourage everyone to just push themselves to really get out there and explore, network, meet new people, because you really never know, you know, in the future what those contacts can be for you.
I'll share a little bit. So at Berkeley, super grateful to have been part of lots of different organizations and met tons of people. So in fact, actually, as you know, Candace kind of mentioned, you really are surrounded by some of the smartest people you will ever meet in your life. And so some of the first people that I actually hired at Implug were my sorority sisters. They were super talented and brilliant. And so I joined everything from a sorority to a business fraternity. I served as EVP for the ASUC. I was part of engineering groups, Model UN. So I'm really grateful to have that because I think when you're in college, it's this time when you can totally explore lots of different things. And I like that because then you're exposing yourself to different people, different ideas, and that helps you regardless of what career you're in. For me, because I was starting a company in biotech, starting a company in tech that was sort of consumer facing, is really nice to kind of have a lot of data points of, you know, what people think about, what people care about. And one really fun way to do that is joining lots of different organizations on campus. Now, conversely, one thing I kind of wished I did was because of all that, I was really, really involved. I feel like I spent like 80-90% of my time like socializing, doing the clubs. I really didn't like go to class like at all. It was kind of like do the minimum amount of work to get an A. And if it's a big lecture, if there's like more than 50 students in class, I probably just didn't go to it. And now I kind of wish that I actually did because you have some of like literally Nobel Prize winning professors. And so I would actually say, you know, attend some of those classes, get to know your professors, and take the classes that you, not just like the easy A classes, although of course those can be really fun too and interesting, but actually take the ones that are really interesting to you and just take it, you know, pass fail, so you can, you know, get the interesting content without like, if you're worried about jeopardizing your grade. So that's what I might have done differently.
You know, I think I'd like to second a lot of that. When I walked into Berkeley, I had a huge chip on my shoulder about, you know, not really having any amazing high school achievements like my peers were. A lot of them were, you know, valedictorians and honor roll students. And I felt the need to really get great grades and excel in my class and shoot for a really high GPA in anticipation for grad school. And I think the funniest part is at the time when everyone else was applying to grad schools, I was talking to startups and eventually joined a very early company where I don't think anybody even checked my GPA. And I think in hindsight, like you know, of course it's really important to learn, right? But don't focus on a GPA because the difference between a 3.5 and a 4.0 is actually very small when it comes to the actual knowledge and skills you walk away from. So I just say, if there's any regrets I have, is it's not spending, or it's stressing too much about grades. But I think the biggest benefit I had from Cal was the opportunity to be surrounded by people of so many different knowledge sets. And I think in science, it's really easy, especially science and engineering, to get siloed into kind of your field and feel the pressure of your academics kind of beating at your back all the time. And it can be discouraging to kind of make time to do these other extracurricular activities or even just talk to people. But I think that's probably one of the most valuable resources that are at Berkeley, is actually the human capital.
We have a big range of years and grads with us, and even at all these different stages that our audience is at, guidance is always helpful. So for our panelists, do you or did you have a mentor at some point in your career? If so, how did they help you?
I could take this one to begin with, Alex. I absolutely leaned on a mentor in my career. So just a little background in commercial real estate in general is a relationship business, and commercial real estate, an even smaller subset of the real estate umbrella. And so you come to find that it's more or less an old boys club, and I didn't fit. I didn't look like them. I didn't speak like them. And I remember interviewing with the senior investment sales broker at Colliers, who's been in the business for 30 years, selling multifamily property. And he took a chance on me without any background in the business, but he knew I was hungry and motivated and I would work harder than anyone else. And so he took the chance, he gambled on me and brought me in. And if it wasn't for him opening the door, I don't think I'd ever be in this business. He kind of tucked me under his wings and taught me the way we shared an office. I was privy to all his phone conversations. I learned, the deal process, how to discuss with clients, things that go wrong. The way he would handle that was for me very important. I'm the type, when something goes wrong, I'll get very nervous or anxious, start getting hot behind the head. But he was, cool as a cucumber, and he would handle it so smoothly that I learned a lot from him. And so, yes, I think having a mentor in the career you ultimately want to see yourself in is going to make all the difference. So if you can find someone who's willing to teach you, then by all means pursue that.
I would say some of my best mentors actually are just my friends and people that I'm surrounded with. So I never had a formal mentor. In fact, I think some folks that might see, oh, that person must be your mentor. It's actually a friendship. So I think about one of my best friends, Serena Kay. She's a super successful entrepreneur. She sold a company for a multi-billion-dollar company, really amazing person, but we hang out. And so it's very much a two-way relationship where it's, yes, she is my mentor, but she'll say as much that I also help her. And it's very much a friendship and mutual relationship. And I would say one thing about, I think, the mentor relationship is that it really can come in all types of folks that are around you. So with the friends, I think those folks are some of the people that probably mentor us the most. One of my favorite quotes is, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." And I always thought that was really interesting. And I remember when I told some of my friends, they jokingly said, "Oh, I got to spend time with different people then." But that means it's your friends. It could be your significant other, your boyfriend, your girlfriend. And so that's something that to also think about, that you are really learning a lot and you're getting influenced by them.
Oh, Nancy, I think you stole the words right out of my mouth, because I would love to say the same thing, actually. I wish I had a mentor. It would have been great to have a mentor in science at Berkeley, but I just never ended up finding one. And who I kind of looked up to were the people around me. And I did my best to kind of learn from the successes and failures of my peers, and try to understand what the people just ahead of me in the next class were doing. And maybe if I wanted to go in that direction, I should pursue some of the same opportunities. But again, I think at least when I was a student, I always felt the pressure of the conversation of like, who is your mentor? And without having one, I think in hindsight, I realized like it is okay to not actually have a mentor, and you can find those resources elsewhere if you need. I mean, it's great if you have a mentor too. That's probably the best situation, but not everyone is going to find a mentor who really fits with them. And sometimes, if you want to take a non-traditional path, sometimes a mentor, they're going to tell you a great way to go down the traditional route. But at times it's good to kind of try out a new trajectory to solve an old problem. You end up with some new creative solutions. So I encourage anyone who has a mentor or not to, still feel good about their decisions.
I'll add to that. I agree with you, Ty. Sometimes, I know for me, sometimes I feel like there are certain steps in my head that I say, oh, I must do this, and then I must get a mentor, and then that will open this door. And, sometimes it happens, and sometimes for everyone that doesn't. And if that doesn't happen, that doesn't mean, you should be stagnant and stay where you are because you don't, have a mentor. So I totally understand what you're saying. From my experience being an African-American woman on campus, you notice right away that you are a minority on such a large campus with so many students. So one of my mentors on campus was a professor named Nzinga Douglas, and she just helped me to kind of feel more comfortable, just being myself and not feeling like you needed to code switch or do anything to, make other people feel comfortable around you or vice versa. And so for me, that was very helpful because I began to realize that my, experiences and my background, brought a new perspective. And so that was actually in some cases like, needed, or in some cases it was actually innovative, because of my background. I thought maybe differently than some other people thought, or, just had a different approach to solving problems maybe. So I think for anyone, on the call who may be experiencing the same thing where you may have imposter syndrome or feel like you have to code switch, just understand that like what you bring to the table is unique and is what will set you apart. And my mentor helped me to notice that.
Thank you, all of you, for sharing your experiences with your mentors or lack thereof. And Candace, thank you for touching on imposter syndrome. I really relate a lot to that. I'm sure a lot of my peers at Cal also feel that way. So in college, we might feel that our major might determine our whole career, but oftentimes, and we have already touched on this, but oftentimes our experiences outside of our major can help lead us to a new path. So for our panelists, how have your experiences outside of your direct field of work helped you in your career?
Yeah, I did things pretty outside of what I studied. I did a double major in political economy and business. So of course the business part helped, but I would say I probably learned more about business just by doing it and working on projects and little startups throughout college. I really encourage everyone to try to do things that are like really outside of your domain and really outside of what you plan on studying. So unlike Ty, who's like brilliant scientist, I wish I had Ty's brain. It would really probably helped me a lot in starting a biotech company. But my joke is you can start a venture-backed biotech company without having taken a lot of chemistry classes if you wanted to, because that's what I did. And of course, I also on the side produce TV shows. For example, one of them is Drama World on Netflix. Another one that I won the Emmy for is on Amazon. It's called The Bay. I think it's like every 30 seconds you watch, I get like a cent or something, in case you were wondering about the economics of that. But I obviously did not study like entertainment, TV or film, but it was always like helping put on events. That's like production. That is like TV show or movie production. You learn a lot about people management and planning and organization. And so you can also go into lots of different things. I think the most important skill set when you're in college, regardless of what you major in, is the ability to learn and figure things out and ability to problem solve. And then also the teamwork, being able to leverage the resources and the human capital and brains and skills and talents around you and to get something done.
So I gotta say, probably the most influential thing in my life has actually been art. And not just the practice of art, but art as a concept in itself. I think it's really easy, or I should say, I got into science because I wanted to do innovative things and I wanted to create novel chemical systems or things that would help humanity. So invent something, and that takes creativity. And that's something that really is rarely talked about in an undergraduate science education, or at least it wasn't in mine. And I think it's easy to forget that creativity in itself is a skill, and it can be practiced in the abstract. And I think the way I like to do it is through art and music, and it's been a part of my entire life. My parents were artists, so I've always been the black sheep to go to science, but I was still able to kind of bring those core lessons about life from art into what I do now. And I think that's been very impactful on how I've ended up at Mykonos in a research role, and to be able to kind of be creative in science in a way that is a really rare opportunity for someone without a PhD to be doing. And I feel very, very thankful for that hindsight.
So it looks like Candace is having some internet problems, so hopefully she'll hop back on soon. But I'll get her back up to speed once she joins back on. And so I want to hit one last question, and we'll move forward with our Q&A for our panelists. So there's definitely a lot of challenges that we're all facing, especially current students and recent alums with our current circumstances. And so what advice do you have for students recent alums entering this job market? And Ty, we can start off with you.
I think the biggest advice I would say, for anyone graduating at any time, I know, graduating under the circumstances of pandemic is especially challenging and brings up a whole nother set of unknowns. But in general, there's a lot of different directions you can go. And I think for me, I always aspired to either do something really crazy and imaginative or just be a total failure. And so to me, it was, if I wanted to be average, just kind of do what everyone else is doing. But if otherwise, don't be afraid to take risks and try something new. And sometimes, a really dismal environment for work is a great time to start trying new things. Maybe, the job market is terrible, or you didn't get into grad school or something, and you have a whole year to fill with something that you decide, right? You can go off and learn a new skill or pursue that pet project that you always wanted to try out, but you never had enough time for. So I would say, if you can, try to figure out a new way to use your time if you have it. And don't be afraid to kind of leap before looking.
Nancy, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you, Ty.
There's three things that come to mind, I think, for folks that are now going out into the job market. There's one, I think there's, two skill sets that I think are very valuable right now to any employer is your ability to just be generally very resourceful, being a generalist, being able to just problem solve and be pretty willing to just kind of take up any kind of responsibility. And part of that is relating to the second piece, which is not just being resourceful, but being flexible. I think, if you're studying something like very specific, but you have great communication skills, just general great problem solving skills, you really could find that you'll have a lot more different types of job opportunities out there if you frame it like that, which is, yes, I might have studied something very specific, but what I'm good at is organizing. I'm good at learning something very quickly. I'm good at just generally any kind of responsibilities you need me to do, I'll figure it out, or I'll find people that can help me figure it out, how to get to the solutions. I think that's really important. The other piece that I think for folks that are in the job market right now is, as Ty mentioned, this ability to kind of explore and be open. So if you are in a position where you're in a financial position where you can choose to sort of take some time off and not immediately jump into. I know that's not the case for everyone, but if you are, then this is a time to be really creative and to actually take a break, because that's actually really helpful to ourselves. And we never really appreciate just being even the concept of being bored can be very, very helpful, where you just get to reflect and to think, to focus internally, to focus on our health. Maybe some of us have been really overworked in college, and now it is very much worth your time, your life, your health to actually just take a break. So that's my thoughts on that.
for me, it was a willingness to kind of think outside the box in a situation where I didn't really think I would find myself in a career that was involved in commercial real estate when certainly I was in Berkeley. And then again, when I went to law school, I had no plans to be in real estate. But I found myself interning at places that, I vividly remember studying for civil procedure exam and going online and looking for jobs at a property management company. It has nothing to do with law, but I was just interested in the concept. And so I thought, why not go out and see what that has to offer? And that actually opened up a door for me that I didn't expect it would. And so I guess my answer to that question is be flexible and be willing to go outside of your box, whatever your box is, be willing to go outside of it. Because once you do, I feel that you may be surprised at what you come across, and it could inform a decision that you never would have even entertained had you not gone outside your box.
How best can a new transfer student / junior make connections while studying online from home because of COVID? And I see Candace just got back on, so welcome back. And yeah, so again, the question, how best can a new transfer student junior make connections while studying online from home because of COVID?
It's funny, right now, everyone is so starved for social interaction. I think if you just reach out and ask people to, hey, let's have a chat after class, or either your peers or professors or even people you've never met, I think most people are going to say yes. And not only say yes, they're probably going to be excited about it because, let's face it, we all are stuck to our kind of COVID bubbles and we see the same 5 to 10 people for months on end. So it's nice to get out there and meet new people, even if it is just virtually. So I would say the best way is to just kind of not be shy and give it a shot and see who's willing to talk to you.
I'm going to follow up with that, Ty, and absolutely I agree that we're all starved for social interaction. I'm cold calling people on a daily basis, and before COVID, it would be a quick who, click. And nowadays, I'm actually having meaningful conversations with people who wouldn't give me the time of day. And so to Ty's point, really, it is an opportunity if you're willing to reach out and get uncomfortable. If you're, shy, like myself, I'm very shy, but get uncomfortable, reach out to those folks. They're willing to give you the time more often than not. And I think now is an opportunity for that more than ever.
Yeah, I'll say, sorry, let me apologize first. I had internet issues, so I'm back. But I'd say take advantage of this time as far as we're all social distancing. We're all doing everything virtual. So if you're like an introvert, like I am, an outgoing introvert, then really take advantage of the fact that you don't necessarily have to have these nervous, awkward in-person conversations. You can do things over email, over the phone, over Zoom, and you can be a bit more comfortable knowing that, you don't have the same pressure as meeting in person, and, put your Zoom shirt on. I don't know if that helps you, but yeah, really take advantage of the digital, this digital phase that we're in, and try to kind of let go of the nervousness and really just kind of go for it, because it's digital. So, rejection over the internet is a lot better than in person. So just go for it.
I'm going to share some things that I've seen my little sister, Jamie, who's a freshman right now. She's in the dorms, but of course all the classes are online. Some of the things that I saw that she's doing to build connections, I think is actually pretty impactful. There's a lot of different groups. There's like the Facebook group, there's like this app that all the Berkeley students apparently are on. And in these apps, there's like different groups. I would say you can join those groups. And in those groups, you can say, hey, I'm living, like if you're not on campus, I'm living in this city. Anybody else living in that city, if you want to go to a park and do a social distance, like hangout, and just start a meetup. Just say, hey, I'm going to be here studying. Anybody else who wants to join me at this park or this location, and you're like within a half hour, like if you can drive here, like let's hang out in these different cities. And so I would say, be that organizer instead of seeking other people that are, doing that. Just like say, I'm going to be here, I'm going to do this, and make it very actionable and easy for other people to, meet you in a socially distanced way. And you can also start your own groups. I can't name, the number of times I have like in college, just like blasted all my various listservs with, try this new product of mine, or hey, I'm going to host this event so that you can try this other app of mine. I know the last 10 I sent you failed, but this one is going to be the one, guys. Like, you want to be at the launch party of this, right? Like, so don't be afraid to be the one that, if you are introvert, like maybe try to, be the easy extrovert by just saying, I'm holding a Zoom party or, whatnot. And make it pretty easy for anyone to just like pull up their phone and hang out.
Thank you all for your advice. And I'll come back to the Q&A, but Candace, the last question that you missed out on was, what advice do you have for students or recent alums entering this job market? And you already touched on that because of your experience in 2009, so go ahead.
Yeah, I think my advice would really be just like, I feel like, I don't want to be that annoying person to say like, make the best out of every situation, but I'm going to say that. I feel like, since we've all been kind of quarantined and having more time, to reflect, to think, to work on projects that maybe we've put off, I feel like it really has been, for me at least, a great opportunity to really tap into a lot of things that I maybe had put on the back burner that I've been wanting to get off the ground. So I'd say my advice is to really, kind of let yourself go and go into those thoughts that maybe you push to the back burner, right? Like maybe those classes that you took that you thought, oh no, I'll never make a career out of that, or, that interest that you've always had. Like, I think this is the time to really like pursue those things and, take that risk and kind of just try it out, right? I think we're in such a unique time right now where I think it's just the perfect opportunity to really try something new. And, I think if it fails, then that's okay, because a failure is really just a lesson. But I would just really recommend people to go for it, because there will always be a job. There will always be a 9-to-5, job for you waiting there for you. So I feel like take advantage of really exploring like who you can be, who you want to be, the type of life that you see yourself having. This is the opportunity, I think, to really just go after those things and not kind of hold back or don't limit yourself. So I know that's not very concrete, but whatever that means to you, I think you should really take that, plant that seed and water it, allow it to grow, and really just give yourself the opportunity to like, become the best version of yourself right now. Because like I said, I tell myself this all the time, like I am working for myself. I feel like I have, I'm at the point where it's profitable and it's successful, but, I know that there's always going to be, if I ever needed to go get a job, which I'm not a 9-to-5 person, but if I ever needed to, they're there. Those jobs are there. So it's like, that's not taking the risk. Like really take the chance now to invest in yourself and really just go for it. And I think this is the perfect time, especially when I graduated, you couldn't tell me anything. I was like, sky's the limit. I'm going to accomplish all my dreams. So really just like nurture that. Like it's such a unique time in your life. It will never come again. So I just think like, just go for it. Don't count yourself short. So yeah.
Thank you, Candace. And okay, it looks like we'll have time for one last question. And so the question is, we kind of already touched on this earlier, but is there any advice you'd give to your younger selves, or any advice you'd give to students aspiring towards similar positions such as yours?
So I'm constantly giving advice to my younger self because like I mentioned, my little sister who's in here, Jamie Lou, she's a freshman at Cal right now. So she gets the benefit of like literally every day I'm like reminding her, I'm like, hey, like make sure that you make a good impression actually on your classmates, because as Candace said, these are some of the folks that might be building the next billion-dollar company. They might be the next governor or president. They might be the next Nobel Prize winner. Build those relationships. And, like have fun. And of course, like nobody's partying or drinking right now, right? Except of course you are, but like, don't be the person, don't embarrass yourself, because people actually do remember that. So if you get blackout drunk in college, like people remember, like I had people I remember I would party with in Greek life and they would be like always the blackout drunk person. They like applied for jobs at my company and I'm like, I don't know. Have you really changed in like the last 2 years since I saw you? I'm not sure. So, these things matter. So, make sure you do bring your best self, have fun. And then another thing is really get involved and don't be afraid of failure. So the clubs on campus, a lot of them you have to apply and you might get rejected, and that's okay. Like actually try to get rejected from something. Like if you haven't gotten rejected from a club or something, or from like if you haven't done a startup competition or whatever, I'm thinking of things I did. If you haven't lost one or failed at a bunch of them, you're not doing enough. You're not shooting for high enough goals. So actually try to do something where you might fail or you're afraid of failing, and then try to actually fail.
I think to add to that point too, a lot of people look at their aspirations and they ask themselves, well, what are the odds? And maybe the odds are literally low. But I think if I went back in time and I actually knew the odds of any of the steps in my education or career, I would have just never even tried. And I think that's really important to know is like, maybe other people want to go back and tell themselves something. I would want to make sure that I don't know how unlikely my chances of success really was, because that would be incredibly discouraging. So looking forward, I think, like Nancy said, is keep trying until someone tells you you can't, and even if someone tells you you can't, prove them wrong. So.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I feel like when I hear no, it literally just means try harder, and that can be, I'm the most annoying person sometimes, because no, sometimes for me just means like, oh, I just find another way. So I think, fail forward, fail often, because what is the alternative? The alternative is that you didn't try. The alternative is that you will have regrets. And the alternative is that you will not really live your fullest life, right? And I think that to me is worse than trying and failing. So, if I gave advice to my younger self, it would just be to not care too much what people think, as in like, don't try to limit yourself by, others' expectations or others, the confinements that they may put around you. I know for me growing up, in Oakland, it was basically one of the few acceptable careers were to be a doctor, a lawyer, or, work in a bank or something like that. And here I am with a degree in communications and fashion design. So it's, it's like, I love to prove people wrong. I love to prove myself right. And, you just have to be your biggest fan, your number one fan, and really just, put yourself in the mindset to know that it's going to be hard work, but that hard work is going to pay off. And we don't know when that will happen, right? It's a journey. And that's the other thing to know is like, it's not always about the destination. It's about the journey to get there, because you will learn so many lessons and you will thank yourself for going through all those doors and all those no's, because you will eventually get to a yes. So just don't give up, and just remember why you're doing it. I think that's the biggest thing, is remembering why you want it, why you're doing it. And that will help keep you going when you hear those no's.
Thank you, Candace. And unfortunately, we're out of time for Q&A, but I want to give a super big thank you to Candace, Mehdi, Nancy, and Ty for your time and wisdom. I'm feeling very inspired for everything that you've shared. So I'm very grateful that you're all here, and I'm very grateful for everyone that's watching. Take care and go Bears.